Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Tom Curran and Phil Perry. This is Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, and it's the aftermath. It's the aftermath of a 21-14 loss that the Patriots suffered at the hands of themselves to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Phil, this game is maddening for a number of different reasons, and it can just be surface level with the 5 turnovers, none of which were really caused by unhuman defensive plays. Can be added to it the 2 very easy touchdown scores at the beginning of the game for Pittsburgh. But what's maddening about it to me is that this Patriots team quite clearly is much, much, much better than 2024 and 2023. They have more talent on the offensive line. 5 sacks notwithstanding. There's enough time for the kid to throw. The quarterback is better. The running backs are better. The defense is playing better. They went through a huge stretch in which they were turning away the Steelers time and time again. But they're still playing dumb. They're still trying to do too much. They're not playing within themselves. They're not playing focused. There continues to be, from what is an improved team and could be a good team, bad team behavior, Phil.
I'm going to try to meet you halfway on this because I think I know what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is when you look under the hood, even though they're 1-2, and even though they've turned it over as many times as they have, I think the total number is 6 now. Even though they've had all the penalties they've had through 3 games, I believe we showed a number on Post Game Live that they have more turnovers and penalties than they did through 3 games last year under Drake Maye. And yet you say they're improved. I think what you're saying is when you look under the hood, they're actually a lot better, and if they can eliminate some of these things that make bad teams, then you're actually going to like the result.
Thank you. Yes, this team should have blasted the Pittsburgh Steelers today. You compare this loss to, say, for instance, the loss to the Chargers last year at the end of the season. Totally non-competitive. You compare this loss to losses in the 2023 season under Bill Belichick, where they were inept, couldn't block, couldn't tackle. They're losing 10-6 to Tommy DeVito. They're losing in, to the Indianapolis Colts. Even last year, losing to the Indianapolis Colts last year with Anthony Richardson at the bell. That team wasn't good. This team shows capability, especially with Drake Maye, of being good. And Mike Vrabel seemed to indicate it a little bit, too, in his opening commentary with being asked a question of, obviously, you don't want those turnovers, huh? Here's Mike.
We don't need to learn a lesson. And we don't need to learn a football game to know that turnovers are very hard to overcome. So they erase all the good things that you do. They take away momentum. They take away points, give them field position. So we didn't need to turn it over as many times as we did to learn a lesson. I think we knew that before. So it was very unfortunate.
Phil, within that, Mike mentions they take away momentum. They take away points. It gives them field position. They were on the cusp of scoring points. Good teams get to the cusp of scoring points and score them. Bad teams get to the cusp of scoring points and don't score them. Horrific teams don't get to the cusp of scoring points. So what I'm trying to say here is, am I trying too hard to thread the needle and make the point? Like, I'm just trying to say that they're not that far from being okay.
And I understand that, and I think our audience will understand that as well. I think what's maddening is that the turnovers and the penalties are what we have seen. So we've seen bad football. Now we've seen incompetent football on top of it. And that's what happens when I think you have a real dearth of talent, which is what they had in 23 and 24 for sure. This year, the talent's better. I agree with you on that. Especially, I think the quarterback has improved. But part of what made the last few New England Patriots teams, bad teams, was they turned it over. They couldn't hold on to the football in critical situations. And so it's happening again. And so I think what you're saying is it's actually kind of encouraging because if these solvable problems get solved, you're going to have a season here. I would look at it maybe the other way as just speaking for that section of the fan base that says, Curran, I know, the line might be better and the defense has been okay, but what are we talking about?
Yeah.
They're giving the football away to the other team. This is as bad as it gets. there's no hope, but you're saying maybe there is.
Well, but how many times, I'm sure if you're a fan, you're saying, well, Tom, how many times do you need to see Rhamondre Stevenson fumble before you conclude he's a guy who fumbles? It's 9 now in a season plus. It's eye-popping. But I guess maybe I get romanced by the idea that I've seen him play well. And then I saw what he did last week against Miami. But I did this in 2023, the beginning of the year. I said, well, Bill O'Brien's back. And the Patriots aren't going to continue to be the moron team that they were in 2022. They're not going to have games like they did with the Vegas Raiders where their best player, Jacoby Myers, gets it pitched to him by Rhamondre Stevenson, and then they throw it backwards to Mac Jones, and he gets stiff-armed through the earth's crust. Those are outlier things that a Patriots team won't do. So I continue to look at this team maybe through the prism of, oh, yeah, you know what? They're going to be fine when they just clean that up. Maybe bad teams, which I'm not used to covering, and I'm getting used to it, just don't change their stripes that quickly. And that's why if you're saddled with Rhamondre Stevenson, and saddled is not the right word, we're going to get into him more and listen to what Mike Vrabel had to say, or you're carrying Kyle Duggar and his $9 million salary and he's not on the field barely at all, if at all. Didn't even look at the snaps. But you still need to continue to turn this team over until you get who you want and what you want. I guess that's what I'm driving at. It's a better team. I continue to look at it. I'm going to look at it next week and say, hey, Carolina coming in. I don't care if they won 30-0. Patriots should be able to just clean their clock. They should be a 3-1 team. So I'm living in this la-la land where you are not what your record says you are.
And I think, listen, when you put it that way, I think everybody's going to understand your point, which is they should be 2-1. How many times did we look at this team last year, even though they had a number of, I think it was 7 one-score games last year.
Yep.
But how many of those games did you leave saying the Patriots should have won it? I would venture to guess that number is very few. It's maybe 1 or 2. Because they just weren't good enough to, even in a close game, have you look at them and say, oh, yeah, no, they should be winning on a regular basis. It just never felt that way. This team does feel like it should be 2-1, if not for their own stupidity. And that, to me, is the appropriate word. It's the word Mac Jones. We're following with one eye the 49ers game right now, where we have been for the last hour or so. Shootout is 3-3 at last check. Drake Maye said it was stupid, and he's not wrong when he's going down late in the game and tries to shovel pass to Travion Henderson late because he's got that hero ball gene in him. And, Mike Vrabel's sound on May, I think, was really good and apt because he knows what sometimes his quarterback's problem is.
Throw to it right now and then follow that up with Drake Maye talking about that fumble that Phil referred to. Here's Mike Vrabel talking about Maye's performance.
A lot of good, and unfortunately some decisions that have to be better. I'm sure we'll have to protect them better. And just understanding that you don't have to win it all on one play. There's opportunities to move on and save the day the next play. And you just can't put the ball in harm's way at that position. But certainly Drake wasn't alone. But there's a lot of really good things in there. His ability to extend plays, scramble, pick up first downs for us, run a multiple plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket. So there's a lot of good things in there, and just some decision making that we need to have be better.
And meanwhile, that fumble late, they had the pick in the end zone. We're not going to give you the sound from that. We'll just talk about it a little bit. But also the fumble late, which was egregious because he's doing something right. He's doing something right. He's doing something right. He looks like he's going to take his medicine. The drive will continue. And then he tries to shovel it. Here's Drake Maye.
Yeah, I just saw Travion late and try to do something, stupid. So, really, I don't think it's just continue playing. I think, my capability of getting outside the pocket makes it tough on them. They're good front. Thought those guys up front blocked their butts off. But yeah, just be more decisive. And, if I had to take a sack, just take care of the football. That's number one thing.
Who is Drake Maye?
That's a deep question. I'm not sure we have enough time for that, Tom, quite frankly. But I did think, that play, if you want to look at that one play, that in some ways sort of encapsulates where he is right now. He can 50%, maybe even 65, 70% of the time make the right choice. And then at the very end, he might not. I thought the last drive was a good look at where Drake Maye is in his development right now because he was able to complete a couple passes. He was able to scramble for a first down and use his legs. And so you saw the accuracy and you saw them moving quickly at the line of scrimmage and you saw the athleticism. And then he takes a sack on first down. And then he misses an open Pop Douglas over the middle of the field. I thought he missed him. I don't know what the call is there. He ended up throwing it behind Douglas. It hits the turf. Was he supposed to sit right there? Is he supposed to keep going? That's always one of those that we don't really know. But he misses a throw there and the drive ultimately ends up getting blown up. So all progress is not linear. He will continue to progress. But today was certainly not the next step that I think people were hoping for after watching what he did last week.
No, he was not nearly as efficient nor accurate as he was in the first week. I mean, he could have had 2 picks. The first drive, he hit a fella in the hands, and then later he threw a would-be pick after a Patriots picked up a 4th and 1. After May, I think later in that drive, had a 16-yard scramble. And then you're making good plays, and if you start hitting at the roulette table on red and black, you take a little profit. Don't put everything on red and on one spin, which is what he was doing, I think, on that throw down the sideline. I look at some other throws, too. There was a 3rd and 4 inside the 20, and he looked down to Kayshon Boutte on the outside left running, and he didn't keep it on the field of play. It landed out of bounds. Boutte might have jumped and caught it. There was no way he was catching it in bounds, but they got thrown a bone by getting a DPI on that play. So this was not an efficient game from Drake Maye. There was much more, I think, dispersion.
There was.
Then we've talked about that before. The dispersion between good Drake Maye plays and bad Drake Maye plays continues to be really wide. They got to get the dispersion smaller. Keep the good ones, but his bad and horrendous ones have got to be narrowed down because the horrendous ones are taking wins off the board and taking food off the table directly out of the mouths of many of the Patriots coaching staff and ancillary and auxiliary staff. And it's depriving people of the opportunity to make a living.
That is over dramatizing it. But
Well,
listen, this is the aftermath, okay? This is why you're here. I would even look, Tom, at that last drive before halftime because you saw dispersion there. You saw that was where they converted on 4th and 1 on that pitch to Stevenson, which to me was, boy, I don't know if you call it gutsy. There was clearly some aggressiveness happening with Mike Vrabel and going for 4th and 1. I'm not even talking about going for it on 4th and 1 in that situation, but pitching to a guy with fumbling issues who had just fumbled earlier in the game. That's, to me, you got to get that part of the play right first. So that's a lot of trust in Rhamondre Stevenson right there. And then he has to finish without fumbling and he has to pick up the first down. Oh, by the way, I think they ran that same play on either 3rd and short or 4th and short last week in Miami, and it didn't work.
They did it one more time.
They ran it twice today on 4th and 1, and it worked both times. So good on them for believing in it. But that was right after was when he threw the near pick to Pop Douglas down the left side of the field. But then they hit that dig over the middle to Boutte for 20 yards, which I thought was a nice throw. They gave us a great replay from behind center. A nice layered throw over the middle, hit Diggs on a whip route for a first down, drilled a seam to Hunter Henry. They ended up hard counting right after that, picking up 5 yards. He's looking like Aaron Rodgers out there. And then a handful of plays later, after he hits his head on the turf, he ends up throwing a pick. So, you're right. It's just back-breaking mistakes mixed in with these flashes of, wow, you've got a real player here.
Is Josh McDaniels, I think in the overview, Josh McDaniels is doing a remarkably good job of developing him and finding a cachet of plays that he can perform in. But when the money's on the table, is he still trying to figure out exactly what can make Drake Maye the most effective? And I look at the throw to Boutte on the 3rd and 4. It's low percentage. Is Josh asking him, or is that a read? Because as we know by now, and most of you fans do too, no one says, okay, this is a play, we throw it out to the left. You don't. You decide after you see what the coverage is where it's going to go, and you have a primary read based on that. But when you're throwing on a 4th and game, which is what it was, and the decision is to throw a little out route to, or whatever it was, to Demario Douglas, who's the smallest player. And seriously, there is right now a significant block between Demario Douglas and Drake Maye in terms of Maye throwing to him accurately, getting it on his body in a position where he can do something with it. They're just not, and that could be where Douglas is maybe not exactly where Maye thinks he's going to be. Maybe he's too small. Maybe Maye just doesn't feel comfortable throwing to him. But how many times have we seen Douglas hit in the hands with throws that he can do something with? And he might have been able to do something with the throw today, but Douglas wasn't deep enough. I don't blame him for trying to go backwards and then gain yardage.
On the last play of the game for the Patriots.
He was host. He's got two guys. He's got 300 pounds to 400 pounds worth of player in front of him. He's not going to run through him. Try and make something happen there.
Do you try to do the old, I feel like I can picture in my mind's eye.
Will himself invisible?
Newly minted Patriots Hall of Famer, Julian Edelman, catching
and burrowing,
and diving and burrowing and just doing that thing. It's head first, and it's as soon as you catch it, you're staying low and you're avoiding contact, but you're also trying to pick up whatever you possibly can. Pop Douglas is not Julian Edelman. We know that. And you're right. The connection just hasn't been there. I would say for the receivers overall, knowing going into this game that it should be a tight end game, this was the worst defense in football when it came to defending two tight end sets, the Steelers were. And so I thought it was smart of Josh McDaniels to have Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry out there as much as they did. The numbers for those guys was incredible by the end. 10 catches for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, that part of the game plan, check and check. Good job. That's what they should have done, and that's what they did. But for Kayshon Boutte to have 2 catches for 28 yards and have that be your leading wide receiver, and I know they spread the ball around. They had a great graphic in that CBS early portion of the game where they showed just how many players have been targeted 8+ times and had 50+ receiving yards, and that's all well and good. You're not going to win a lot of games if your leading receiver is 28 yards receiving, even if 4 different guys are 25 and above. That's just not how it's going to work moving forward, and I wonder, Tom, if the lack of juice at that position, the lack of real talent at that position is already hampering them. And part of that is Stephon Diggs not giving them what a lot of people hoped he would give them. It looks like I'm just looking at an email here. It looks like from people that are at Gillette Stadium, he just decided not to meet with the media today. So I wonder how he's feeling after a game where he doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. But this is something that we have to monitor moving forward. It's just that position and what they're giving the team, because as good as those tight ends and those backs are, the backs let you down today, and the tight ends aren't good enough to carry a consistent winning level NFL offense.
Here's the interesting thing to get back to the decision to throw it to Douglas, though, on that play. Hollins had 4 targets, 4 catches for 27 yards. He's a pseudo tight end. You can throw it to him because he's a big body. If you can post somebody up, terrific. Diggs was 3 catches on 3 targets, 23 yards. Boutte, 2 catches, 28 yards. Douglas now, today, had 5 targets, 2 catches, 7 yards. For the season, I believe, I'd have to look at the targets and everything, and I don't have that window open. But I think he's got 4 catches.
It might be up to 5. I want to say he had 3. I want to say he had 3 catches coming into the game. 3 catches on 8 targets for 6 yards, or something like that. You make a good point about Hollins, glorified tight end, and I was just looking at it before we started recording on the pod. But you know who Drake Maye was looking to on a double move down the field, down the right sideline, in that first down moment where he ultimately ends up fumbling, but they're trying to take a shot there, is what it looks like. And on the outside, your go-to guy, your first read on a double move deep down the field is a glorified tight end. It was Mac Hollins. It just, that's not NFL offense in 2025 for good teams, right? Good teams have another player who is highly drafted typically or is making a lot of money. That's that guy who's asked to make the double move and go make a play down the field. It's no surprise to me that Drake Maye didn't throw to him. He was covered. Austin Hooper was covered on that same side of the field. By then, you're looking at your third read, and people are swarming in, and he made a bad decision. But those are the types of plays and the types of calls where you look at it and say, I know Drake Maye made a bad decision there, and that was his mistake, and he owns it. And good for him on that. But if you just had a little different group of personnel, nothing against Mac Hollins, but he is what he is. If you had a little different group, maybe that ball is out, and instead of lamenting a fumble, you're talking about a big play that changes the game.
Douglas has 5 catches for 13 yards through 3 games. His long is an 8-yard reception. He's got a touchdown. So other than that, he's got 4 catches for 5 yards other than that 8-yard catch.
I thought just today, Tom. Last week was different, and I talked to him about this, and he was
He
open
can't
about
find
it.
the little fella.
Last week, though, was run heavy, right?
Yep.
2 tight end heavy.
Fine.
He's not going to play a lot. Today, he played more, it felt like, partly because they're down. But the connection, that pass over the middle, is he getting the right depth on that last throw of the game? He had a little screen pass to him that was basically grounded by Drake Maye, it looked like, right? And he's trying to scoop it. He's looking like Tony Pena,
that was
trying
a
to scoop
horrible
it off
throw.
the ground. So there's something there with the connection. It's not just the game plan.
Yeah,
with
and
that.
again, he had 66 catches last year on a bad team. So enough on the Demario Douglas, the wide receiver, and the Drake Maye discussion. We're going to get into it plenty more during the week. In addition, we'll probably talk a little bit about his concussion commentary. But Rhamondre Stevenson and the Rhamondre dilemma now takes center stage. Mike Vrabel talking about the 2 fumbles that Stevenson had today. Again, it's 7 from last year, 2 now. Brilliant game last week. Lost them the game this week. Mike Vrabel.
It's like you sit there and we're so excited about him, and everybody's excited about him. The fans are, and we know what his capabilities are. We got to get him back. We need him. We absolutely need him. You see what he was able to do for us last week, his ability to make some plays. And, again, we'll just have to look at the technique. We'll have to look at the ball security. But we're going to need him. And we need his ability, but we also need to take care of the football. So it's a long answer to tell you that I'm not really sure 20 minutes after the game what we're going to do.
You made a great point in postgame live, and that is that Mike Vrabel has spoken about accountability. He is an old school coach. He has not shown a hesitancy to call guys out, but he's also been very defensive isn't the right word. He's been willing to give second chances to guys.
Forgiving.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a byproduct of, hey, any port in a storm, what am I going to do? Cut him? Which it could be. I mean, Rhamondre Stevenson signed a 4-year, $38 million contract last year.
36, 38, something
Be that
like
as it
that,
may.
yeah.
And he's performing worse than either of the running backs. And last week was friggin' terrific. He's capable of that, but actively losing games for them when he can't hold on to the ball. And the first fumble was bad because the ball was – I don't even think they touched the ball that had the hand that had the ball in it. I think they grabbed his left hand and his body twisted, the ball came out. And then on the other one, it was a deft punch on the ball. But at that point, you have to have 19 points of contact on it. Have it surgically implanted into your nipple.
Sounds painful.
Does. But you got to do what you got to do in the National Football League. So how he could fumble there was absolutely incomprehensible. And I'm not a big unacceptable guy.
Oh, I know
When
you're
people
not,
say,
but
"Ah,
incomprehensible.
It's unacceptable." No, it is not. You have to accept it. But it is incomprehensible. I can't understand it.
It's hard to understand, and talking about accountability, they ultimately essentially pulled him, right? I mean, I know he got back out there, I think even after the second fumble for some different types of plays. Antonio Gibson, I'm not sure we saw after his first and only fumble of the game. So it's interesting. They're a little more lenient with Stevenson than they are with Gibson for whatever reason. And I thought, Tom, they actually, one of the reasons, if you go back and you look at the play-by-play from the fourth quarter, and there's still 10 minutes in the game, it's a close score or it's a tie game, and on first and second down, it's like they gave Travion Henderson the occasional rush, but there was a lot of drop back passing, like shotgun spread empty backfield. And I'm sitting there first down, and they completed some of those passes. So, Josh McDaniels could hop on the podcast right now and say, yeah, those plays actually worked. Perry, what do you know? He's right. What do I know? But I'm sitting there thinking, this is a close game. You're at your best last week when you're balanced and you're running the ball and you're letting your offensive line get off the ball, and then you're using play action. And then these boots that have worked so well for you through 2 weeks because they worked again today, then those are available to you. And you can get some misdirection going, and you can play with the heads of these linebackers that have had a hard time through 2 games and even did again today. They just completely lost Hunter Henry on that 4th down touchdown that he scored. These guys are – it's not exactly, Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher out there in terms of football IQ. But they just got away from the run, and I think it was because they benched their 2 big backs. and they probably felt like, well, we got Henderson out there. It's not like we're going to just slam our head into a wall with our smaller guy. And I think that it just made them more one-dimensional, and it put more on Drake Maye's plate. And maybe he did feel like I know we're off the Drake Maye discussion now, but maybe he does feel like at that point, all right, we're not running it anymore because our big backs can't hold on to the ball. I do have to don the cape now. I do have to try to save the day on this play. And there might not be another play after this one. That to me is where you get into a bad spot. So that's the difficult outgrowth for Vrabel and McDaniels and everybody else on this offense of these fumbles is you need these guys to be successful. You need these guys for your quarterback to be successful. And if you take them off the field, you're thereby necessarily putting more on your young quarterback's plate.
I wonder, too, is May in his leadership evolution at a point where he can look at Rhamondre Stevenson or Antonio Gibson and say, you got to cut the shit. I can't look at it anymore. You're costing coaching staff to have mouths going unfed, auxiliary staff to have
very worried about
mouths going
the
unfed.
caloric intake of the coaching staff right now. But I know what you're
But
saying.
can he do that yet? Can he say that?
Do you think he's there? I think he can. Do you think he does? Or
No,
he would?
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I think he has to start to get to that point and just say, cut the shit. If they say, whoa, didn't you throw a pick in the end zone? Yeah, and I feel like shit about it. And you better feel like shit too. Well, I do. We both feel like shit. Do you know those kids are hungry? Anyway.
What about the coaching staff? They're hardly eating.
All right.
It's
One
tough because I think
last point.
those guys do care. I think they do
Of
care,
course
and
they
Stevenson
care.
cares a
Oh, I
lot.
know
You can
they
you can
care.
just see him on the bench and how down he is, and it's like it
not
feels like such
insinuating
a
they don't
simple
care.
thing. No, I know, but it just feels like such a simple thing. Like how do you not get it cleaned up? I
But
guess is the
Mike,
question. And
Mike is in a position
not.
where he has to castigate these guys who are important players. And we like to say, oh, Parcells would have done this or Bill would have done that. This team was so bad, you can't just start throwing guys overboard as the season is going on unless you believe you can't compete. It's easy to throw guys overboard when you're Bill Belichick in 2000. And you're like, these guys got to go. I don't care. Robert, you told me I can do whatever I want. You're sick of Pete? Good. Okay, watch this. I'm going to take all of Pete's guys and I'll keep the Parcells guys. But you can't really cut Rhamondre Stevenson. You already got rid of Peppers. You already got rid of Godshaw. You already got rid of Juwan Bentley and Joe Cardona. Now, 3 weeks in, you're going to cut Rhamondre Stevenson and his fat salary. You already have Kyle Duggar sitting there making $9.5 million a year. $9.5 million, and you're not going to use him. So there does come a point at which Mike has to say, as he does here, we need him. You know, we're going to need him. He can't be thrown overboard.
So what do you do with him? Like this coming week, I agree that I think at some point later this season they are going to need him. I just don't even know what I would do, and Vrabel told us he doesn't know what he's going to do either. But do you just trot him back out there as your starting running back and give him 20 touches next week? Or do you say, Antonio Gibson, I know you fumbled 2, but actually, 15 of those are going to go to you, and Rhamondre's going to get 5. We'll see if he can hold on to it, and then we'll maybe grow his workload back out from there. Do you make Travion Henderson your 3 down back? There were people, after watching him in training camp, Tom, I think there were fans who were looking at the rookie who were saying, he's clearly one of your best players. Just have him out there all the time. I'm not sure he necessarily established himself as a between the tackles runner today. I don't know what you do. It's a difficult one, but I think at some point you do have to. Again, it's the accountability question. I think at some point to send a message to everybody else as to what's acceptable, to get back to that word that you hate, and what's not. Hey, we love him. We're going to need you eventually, Rhamondre, but this week it's going to be Gibson's job.
I honestly have an idea, and you're going to laugh at it. He's not allowed to run with the ball under one hand. If you look at the fumbles today, both were not. He did not have his offhand on the ball. And it sucks to fall without a hand to fall on. You're going to fall differently, and you might hurt your ribs because you can't brace and you can't push and roll. But both of those fumbles today were with one hand on the ball, and it pumped out. It might have been close to his body, but it wasn't on it, and it wasn't secure. There was a lot of ball showing. It's like, for those who are watching, you can see a lot of football. It's not covered and high and tight. It's not up against his armpit crease. So he's not allowed to run with the ball like that. He has to run with the ball in a certain way at all times, which might make him less explosive and less fast if he has to tuck it in a certain way and put the other hand on it. But you have to tell him, you're a good player. We're going to take 83% of Rhamondre Stevenson because now he has to run with the ball with two hands on it until further friggin' notice.
There's no stiff arming. You're losing probably some speed there too
Yep.
if you're running with
You're not
with two
allowed
hands
to
on
do
the
that
football
until further notice.
So you're just going to give him the same workload. You're not our starter right now.
Well, he
You're
has to
not our
practice.
goal line
He has
guy
to
right
practice doing that.
now. Okay.
Okay, during practice, he has to run through. If he gets that, so I'm just saying, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
If you're not going to cut him, you have to do Zapruder film on every fumble, which I'm sure they've already done, and say, see where the ball came out, see where the ball was on your body. Last year, he drops it on the way down. He doesn't drop it because it got punched out necessarily while he was running with it, a la DeMario Douglas a few years ago when he got benched by Bill after a fumble. He drops it on the way down. So
There's been a couple in his career on the goal line. I'm thinking back to late
Am I right?
against Cincinnati at home.
they
Remember
come
that
out
one
on the
in
way
December?
down. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it feels like he was getting the first one. He was sort of getting dragged down. The second one, I don't know if he was diving and sort of sniffing the goal line there when it got punched out. But I think you got to reduce his workload.
Well, do that too.
Because that to me is, Mike Vrabel didn't like the question about motivation the other day, but one way to motivate guys or inspire guys, which is Vrabel's preferred word, to perform better is to, I think, show them that their workload or their pay, which he can't do with him right now because he is getting paid, is going to be reduced. So role, money, that sort of stuff that resonates, and so I think you got to tweak his role because you got to show that you need better than that.
I'm just looking at the play-by-play. And it's good sometimes to look at the play-by-play. So here's how the game went. Patriots got the ball. They fumbled after 3 plays. Stevenson. Pittsburgh got the ball. 8 plays, 48 yards, touchdown. Easy as shit. Patriots get the ball, run 6 plays, don't do anything. They punt. Steelers go 12 plays, 70 yards, and even take a penalty, and they score an easy touchdown. After that, Pittsburgh goes 3 plays for 5 yards, punt, halftime. 3 plays for 0 yards, pick. 3 plays for 8 yards, punt. 3 plays for 3 yards, punt. 5 plays for 4 yards, punt. So that's all that stretch.
Man.
And then they didn't get the ball again until it was 14-14. They got it off of the Maye fumble. And then they finally went 9 plays, 67 yards, touchdown. So if I'm Mike Vrabel, I'm looking at the defense that I've kind of had its back for the first couple of weeks and saying they did everything they could. Here's Mike Vrabel talking about his defense after the game.
Resilient. We got to be better in the red zone when they do get there. I think they settled down, really played the type of defense that we expect, except for the last drive there. So, again, you got to go wherever they put the ball down, you just keep reminding them to go play defense. And they did, and they got stops, and there was energy. And, we just got to keep trying to turn the ball over. You see how critical that is when we can do that and finding opportunities to get it out of the quarterback's hand or, when they do fumble it, try to keep it in bounds or recover it. It's just close game of inches. And we weren't able to recover the fumble, and they were.
So we're going to be so irritated about the Patriots' offensive performance and the mistakes that they made that we may overlook that the defense played pretty well against an offense that has Aaron Rodgers and Kenneth Gainwell, who's not horrible, and Pat Freiermuth, who they bottled up, and DK Metcalf, and is a fairly dangerous team. Talk to me.
Listen, it's funny because 21 points is actually the most points the defense has given up in 3 weeks. They gave up 20 points each of the first 2. But I would say this was probably their best game, right, on that side of the ball. And I like the part of Vrabel's quote where he's talking about we do have to capitalize on the opportunities we get to turn the football over. They had a brutal penalty, which I'm not sure. I saw a replay. it looked like Alex Austin had his hands in a place they shouldn't have been, but he was called for a holding that negated a Milton Williams strip sack that was deep in Steelers territory.
Questionable. He definitely had the PI on the goal line.
The PI was for sure a PI.
Can't hug a guy.
I love you, Zoe. Mean it. I listen to the radio broadcast every week. He was so down on that call, and it was so obvious that it was a PI. He had both shoulder pads in his grasp.
Yeah.
The ball in the air. It's an obvious pass interference, and that gets to the question of Christian Gonzalez and how much they miss him because Alex Austin is playing starter snaps and he's really not a starter. The other play that I thought they had the potential to do something with, and I think maybe it's a rookie and he'll learn from it, Craig Woodson trying to recover a bouncing ball and falling out of bounds while recovering it, as opposed to maybe trying to bat it back inbounds and let one of your teammates get it with your momentum being what it was and understanding. And that's probably a really hard thing to figure out, the physics required and the calculations required there. But no, I'm probably not going to be able to pick this up without falling out. Bat it back in and see if somebody else can pick it up and maybe you have a game-changing turnover there.
But overall, you have a defense that bottled up a team that has some really good players. So that's why I keep going back to this ridiculous stance of mine, which is they could be good. They could be mediocre. How's that? They should be a 2-1 team right now.
They should be.
Clearly should have won this game.
Looking at 3-1 maybe next week against Carolina.
They're lucky to beat Miami, certainly, but Miami sucks. Could have beaten Oakland. Can't even remember that game. It's like totally gone, as is the fact that they moved to Vegas. But
that's been established.
I mean, shit, they could be 4-0. And I know it's,
it's the fact that these problems have been problems of theirs for a while. That to me is the troubling thing.
Yeah,
I think
you're
you're right. It's like it's just transferred from one regime to the next. A lot of it is the same players, but there's just something right now that losing teams find ways to lose. They found a way to lose today. They probably would have won, Tom, had it been 4 turnovers and not 5.
But they tried to make 7.
They tried for 7. Well, on a couple of those, they threw it to the other team, and then, like, the very first drive, they threw it to the other team, and then the very next play, they ended up giving it back to the other team. So, like, it still wouldn't have been 7, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. And it to me, until they get that stuff cleaned up, they sort of are who they've been. So I get your point. They're more talented in some areas. They're much more entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is an unimportant distinction. But until they figure this stuff out, they're still a bad team.
Yeah, no, they are. And I would contend that they are still a bad team, especially if you're going to do bad and dumb things. But if you're a Patriots fan who's saying, I can't watch these guys, same old Patriots, they're not the same old Patriots. They're losing differently. Still losing, but they're losing differently. They're actually losing in a more maddening way because there is a spark of capability and competency there. So it's more, you had more reason to be sad and despondent when they're losing at the end of last year, at the end of 23. But you can be madder now. So get mad. Get mad, America. See you on... the next time we do this, which will be
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Bye, everyone.